Welcome back to Shit Creek Survivors. We believe one thing. We all have a Shit Creek story. The good news is no one has to stay there. If you've ever been through a Shit Creek, you're in one right now, or if you need a few paddles for when life gets tough, hit that subscribe button. Every week, we're going to bring you new stories, new paddles, and new hope so you can find your way through. Every one of us faces moments when life doesn't go according to plan. The question isn't whether you're going to find yourself in Shit Creek. The question is what paddles will help you get out. This week's Shit Creek belongs to Gary Hartman. Gary spent 18 years as a successful periodontist performing complex surgical procedures. From the outside, he had built the life that many people dream of. But behind the scenes, there was a battle with anxiety, burnout, and feelings of not being enough. After a shoulder injury, prescription opioids became something much more dangerous. The dentist who had prescribed medications to help others eventually found himself addicted to the very drugs he once trusted. His addiction cost him his career, his freedom, and nearly everything he had built. He faced incarceration, shame, and a painful process of rebuilding his identity from the ground up. But Gary's story doesn't end there. Today, he's in sustained recovery, sharing his story to remind us that anyone can find themselves in their own Shit Creek. But with honesty, help, and the right paddles, there is a way forward. His journey is a powerful reminder that your worst moment doesn't have to define you, and that purpose can be found even after losing everything. This is Gary Hartman's story. Let's get into this week's Shit Creek. Gary, thank you so much for being here on Shit Creek Survivors. If you would introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, well, thanks. I appreciate you having me here. You know, this is an opportunity that I look forward to. I love the name of your podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, it immediately resonated with my story as it's one of a real shit creek, and I was able to get out of it. And so I like what you're building here. I think it's very important. These discussions are hugely important for people, and so I'm happy to be a part of it. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. So a little bit about me. I am 54 years old. I'm a husband. I have been married to my wife, Shirley, for 25 years. In fact, last night was our 25th anniversary.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. We celebrated that milestone, which is huge for us because we have been through the ringer in our marriage, of course, in our Shit Creek, my Shit Creek that I put my family through. It's amazing that she stuck with me. You know, it's a testament to how strong of a person and how much resilience and strength and caring and compassion she has to, take care of this family and move through it with me and stand by me throughout all of it. I'm just incredibly
awesome
grateful for her. And that goes without saying. So
they say behind every great man is a greater woman. Or partner, I guess you would say. So I totally agree with you. I totally agree.
Man,
my wife has drugged me through the mud in circumstances that I didn't want to go through. So that's right. I totally agree.
Or vice versa. And so for me, that was, I'm incredibly grateful for her. And I also am very proud of my two young children. They're not young anymore. They're actually 18 and 20. Both of those kids have become incredibly well-adjusted young adults. They have been through stuff that most kids never been through. They got through a lot of emotional turmoil and trauma in their life from this Shit Creek that I brought upon them that I'm just, so proud that they were able to get out and manage and do what they're doing now. So
yeah,
proud father of two as well. I'm also a person in recovery, long-term recovery. I have spent my past few years rebuilding my life from a pretty devastating addiction. I had a very public downfall. It was all over the news, and we can talk about that. But it led to my addiction, brought me to incarceration in federal prison. And I lost a career that I spent decades building. And so very much a Shit Creek, if you will.
Yeah.
I professionally was a periodontist for 15 years. I practiced as a private practice, just a solo practitioner. I built that from ground up. And, periodontist is a dental specialist that deals with surgical management of gum diseases. A lot of people don't know what a periodontist is, but they're very highly detail-oriented, very technique-sensitive, very focus-driven procedures that I was able to function at that high level for a very long time and got successful at it. So for most people, they would look at me and say, this guy has a very stable, very successful life. I have a
Yeah.
career, I have responsibilities, I have a family, and
You
all
look
those
put
things.
together, put together.
It's kind of like this picture of, okay, you've got it all put together. But what they didn't know was what I was struggling with internally, and that was
Hmm.
really a tremendous amount of stress, a tremendous amount of pressure. And, it led to really emotional exhaustion, which kind of
Hmm.
led to burnout, depression, and then
Yeah.
eventually addiction for me. So I think the problem I had early on was that I spent a lot of time developing myself professionally. I spent a
Mhm.
lot of time on my career and how to do these procedures, but I spent zero time on how to develop healthy coping mechanisms to deal with these stresses and pressures that this
Right.
practice, entails. And so I became good at functioning while being like completely dissociated from myself emotionally.
Yeah.
I had this wall that, I was, good at this and that was the way I was going to function. But in the inside, I was, completely falling apart. And, it took me a while. I hid it from a lot of people, what was going on with me. And I think
Yeah.
that's really the problem in the healthcare profession, particularly, is that there's this stigma that we're perfect, that we have, that we're this picture of perfection, that we don't have these problems that typical people in society deal with. And that's not
Hmm.
true. We suffer the same issues. And I think that um, keeps us from getting help early, and so
Yeah.
we stay stuck, we stay sick for a very long time, just as health professionals. And I think that stigma is something that I'd like to see broken down,
Yeah.
and so I share my story a lot to particularly try to reach out to the younger healthcare practitioners to, let them know that, it's okay not being okay. And you don't have
Yeah.
to wait till your life completely falls apart before you try to get help. And so,
Yeah.
I think that's an important message that needs to be talked about more, in particular with healthcare providers. But y-
100%.
today, I'm in a different chapter in my life. Recovery's taught me a lot about myself. It's taught me a lot about resilience, what being strong looks like, and that rebuilding a life with meaning after a really difficult circumstance or challenge or struggle is possible for us. Recovery is
Yeah.
possible, rehabilitation is possible. And so, one of the reasons why I like to share my story and I try to do it as much as possible is that I feel like there are a lot of people out there that are struggling quietly. And,
Mm.
if I can just reach that one person, and they maybe can identify with some of the mistakes I made and they can make changes in their life now before they have to suffer the same consequences I did, then I
Yeah.
consider that a win. And so
Yeah.
I do that. And I also, selfishly, it helps me when I share my story. I'm able to
Yeah.
be humble and I can be vulnerable and talk about my most embarrassing, my most regrettable moments. I'm
Yeah.
able to heal and grow a little bit each and every time. It's like I have so much shame and regret and embarrassment and guilt and grief that I deal with, and those things can surface all the time. But
Yeah.
when I talk about it, when I get it out in the open, when I share about it, it somehow lessens it and it helps me, get through it. And so,
Yeah. It's therapeutic.
yeah,
It it kind of is. I learned that through the process of telling my story. I was even told at one point that it's actually a natural response to healing because you're still trying to understand what happened.
yeah,
And when you force yourself to verbalize it, you make yourself articulate it. So you have to find the right words compared to the feeling being in your head.
that's
You
right.
have to put it into word. You have to put it down. That's why they like journaling a lot too.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting what's going on in our head, and sometimes we can't even find the words. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So
I know. Yeah, that's the,
it's about.
the value of the meetings, and you've been in
Hmm.
recovery meetings. It's amazing how you just go there. you don't expect any solutions or any suggestions. It's just you go to a meeting and you talk about what's going on in your head, and you can go into that meeting feeling completely out of sorts, worried, regretful, angry, sad, whatever. Share what's going on with you just by talking about it. You come out of that and you feel better, and it's just
Yeah.
miraculous. The power of sharing. And so,
Yeah. And
yeah,
here's another thing that goes along with that. So when I'm in AA and let's say someone comes in for the first time, just like they look like I felt, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Which was shameful. I can't believe I'm here, or I don't belong here. I just need to get sober, all that kind of stuff. And so you keep like a distance from it, but then you start hearing yourself in all the stories that are being told, and you're like, oh, I might be like you. I might be
yeah,
like you. And then,
right,
you start hearing it, and you're like, maybe I am.
right,
But, yeah, when you go into AA, oh, realized what I was about to say. So the other night, and this has happened multiple times. Someone comes in for the first time, they walk into the meeting, they're late, and then they look at us and they look like deer in a headlight, and they're going to turn around, and we're like, no, 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 come on, we're AA,
yeah,
it's AA, yeah, come on in, come on,
right,
come on, and they'll come in and they'll give you a raw, if they're willing to do it. Sometimes people aren't, but if
yep,
they're willing to do it, a very emotional share, a very like, I am scared, I am lost, scared, I am less than human almost sometimes. And the first thing I say to those people is, thank you so much for coming.
that's right,
You don't realize it, but you've actually helped everyone in this room by walking in the way you did. You've helped everyone in this room stay sober.
that's right,
You really have. And the fact that you're willing to come in and take that first step, you've already done the hard part.
that's
You know what
right,
I mean? Like,
yep,
we're not gonna. Now, a lot of people have, like I did, different ideas of what AA might be, or preconceptions before I
sure,
walked in. Like, I didn't want to join a cult or anything like
right,
that. I just really wanted to get sober.
yep,
But over time, you start to kind of slice off the bits that help, and it really is the shares where you hear yourself and someone else's story, and you know that you're not alone. You're not the crazy person who had that thought.
that's
So,
right.
anyways, that's where I was trying to go with that. But
No, I think it's a perfect good point, and I think the newcomer is like the most valuable person in the room, and
yeah, yeah,
I am reminded of where I was and how bad it was. It's so easy as time goes on to forget how bad it was. You start
yeah,
thinking, well, maybe it wasn't that bad, or the drink starts to sound good again. And it's important to hear these stories of these newcomers come in because you're reminded of, man, that was me. And
yeah,
this is why I keep coming back.
yeah.
So I agree with you.
Yeah, you're reminded it's more than just an urge. It's a disease. It's
Yeah.
an addiction. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
you're in it, and it's good to be reminded that you're in it, because sometimes I'll even forget. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not that I'm like thinking of alcohol. It's just like the way my brain works and
Mhm.
operates. Like, well, if I move this piece and I move this piece, then,
Right.
maybe this would, I don't know. It's a very kind of strange thing that happens inside of our heads,
Yes,
but
it is. Yes, it is. Very
it,
common.
it and when I was in addiction, it would always wrap around to a drink. It would always, you know what I mean? It'd be like,
Right.
something good happened, drink.
Right.
Something bad happened,
Right.
drink.
That's right. That's
Nothing happened, great, drink. And then,
that's
so
right.
it's like I would find a reason
Yeah.
to just open that door one more time and then just
Yeah.
keep going.
Right.
May I ask, what was your first introduction to your drug of choice, which was opiates, I believe?
Well,
Was there
yeah.
an injury involved,
Yes,
or
there
was
was.
it
There was. I when I talk about my story, I kind of back up because alcohol was really the first issue for me.
okay?
If I may, I can just start from the beginning. We always,
Yeah.
all right, we always talk about, you know, in the rooms, what was that first drink like for you, or exposure to the substance? And when I was a kid, I was always this real apprehensive, worried type of kid. I had a lot of stress. I put a lot of pressure on myself to do well. I was an overachiever. I was a perfectionist. I was a people pleaser, all these character defects
Right.
that I know now, but I didn't know back then. But it led me to be this real anxious kid. And, like everybody, at that age, you always hear, it's like drinking it's funny. Society puts this out there, like this forbidden fruit. You know, you got to be 21, and adults can enjoy it, and they see it on the commercials, everybody clinking their beers on the beach, and it's like life is so good. And of course, the young kid's going to be like, what does that feel like? I want to know what that feels like. And
Yeah.
you know, for me, it was 13. It was really early. I had my first exposure to beer. A friend of mine had we had a sleepover. His parents were pretty slack and allowed us to drink. He had a brother with a fake ID, and
Right.
he ends up getting this 6-pack of the nastiest beer you could find. I think it was Goebbels at the time. It was I don't even know if they make it anymore,
I
but
don't know.
and it was warm. And so instead of sipping it, we went straight to beer bonging it. We was, you know, chugged it in a funnel. And I remember the very first time that I had that drink was this feeling of ease and comfort that just kind of, it just came over me like, oh man,
Yeah.
I'm at comfort. I'm at ease. I can be who I want to be. I'm more gregarious in social settings. I can talk to people. I'm not nervous anymore. And I was like, I found the solution to my problem. You know, this is it. I loved it and I
Mhm.
wanted more. So at
Yeah.
age 13, you know, I developed this love affair with this alcohol, and I started smoking weed and pot too. And that
Yeah.
became this, uh, habit that was fun at the time. It didn't become a problem till later. But you know, as I grew, I realized, you know, now that I never developed any healthy coping mechanisms for my stress and anxiety. It was always, hey, I found this solution. This is what works. And
Yeah.
I get into my later on in my adulthood and toward the start of my career, I started using alcohol and marijuana as a coping mechanism. It became, you know, a way for me to eliminate, to numb, to run from my emotions,
Yeah.
run from my feelings. And so I started, you know, drinking alcoholically right around that time. And
Okay.
it was in my early 20s into my 30s when I started my practice that, you know, quickly the stress of running a practice and you know, having a young family and all that, I was, you know, chugging 6-packs immediately after work before I'd come home. And, you know, it
Yeah.
started catching up to me. And
Mhm.
problems started surfacing, you know, like my relationship started suffering. Everything that I used to love to do was sidelined. You know, I would love to go outside and exercise, play golf, ride my bike. None of that mattered. All I wanted to do was get through my day as best I could, get home and drink myself to oblivion. And
Yeah.
got to a point where my wife and I got separated, and I was away from my two young children at the time. They were 4 and 2. And I said, you know what? I've had enough. This isn't fun anymore. It used to work, but it's not working anymore. Now I'm just doing it because I have to. I want to quit. And so
Yeah.
I got exposed to this intensive outpatient program. It's called. It's like residential rehab light. You can still go to work. And you spend 3 hours every night, 4 nights a week for 6 weeks, and you learn about the program of AA. And for me, it was good. Um, I actually stopped drinking, and you learn about sponsorship and what it's like to share, and what the 12 steps entail, and so forth. But like most newcomers, you know, I compared myself out instead of comparing myself in. I was like,
Mhm.
you know, I still got a job. This guy's, you know, homeless. I'm not that bad. Maybe I'm not that bad. I
Right.
just need a little help stopping drinking, you know? And so I kind of
Yeah.
worked this program of half measures, as you know, which avails nothing. And so I'm dry drunking. I'm going around not drinking, but I'm absolutely miserable because I'm
Yeah.
not working the steps. I'm not identifying any of the core issues that were at the bottom of why I was abusing alcohol in the beginning. And now I've
Mhm.
got all this going through my head, and I don't have my crutch. I don't have my alcohol to numb it away. So I was
Yeah.
miserable for about 2 years, being this dry drunk, and I end up getting a shoulder injury. And at this time, I remember I went to the doctor and he was like, "Oh, it's bad. You know, you've torn your labrum. You've got a rotator cuff tear. You're going to need surgery. Here's Vicodin." And he gave me a jug. And back in 2011, you know, they were handing these opiate prescriptions out like they were nothing. You know, I got
Yeah. Like Tic Tacs.
a
Yeah.
jug of 150 pills. Um, and I remember when I first took the first one, I just like the drink back when I was 13. I remember this. this ease and comfort, like, oh man, this is
Yeah.
it. All is right with the world. My worries go away. Now I've got this substance that I'm using with the medical legitimacy,
Yeah.
but it's taking the place of the void that was left from alcohol. And
Hmm.
so, long story, roundabout way of answering your question was that it was after trying to quit alcohol, working a program of half measures, getting exposed to opiates, that kicked off this runaway addiction with opiates. And
Okay.
for me, it was about managing pain at first, even though I liked the pills. I liked the way they made me feel. There was a point in time where that switched. It became more about coping than pain. And I was exaggerating my pain to my doctor, like, yeah, the rehab was tough today. I need another prescription. So I'd get another one. And there was a series of about 2 to 3 Percocet prescriptions I received. And by the time he cut me off, I was in full blown addiction. I mean, it was, I couldn't last 2 days without feeling the physical withdrawals from
Right.
not having the medicine. And so I got to a point of that desperation where I was either going to go to the streets and find the opiates or turn to heroin or buy these pills illicitly, or I had this great idea that, I'm a periodontist. I perform these surgical procedures every day. I write these prescriptions all throughout the day. I'll just ask a friend if I could write a prescription for them, establish them as a patient, like a ghost file,
Yeah.
and then have them pick up the prescription and give it back to me. And it worked. And that was the start of a 4-year process that multiple friends, multiple people I was doing with, multiple prescriptions, um, completely addicted, and starting with like 2 to 3, 4 pills a day till when I was stopped, 10 to 15 pills a day. I mean, it was a living hell.
Yeah.
It was not using the pills to get high as much as it was just to not withdraw, just to function. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that,
So you get to that point where it's
yeah,
not even like there's no fun.
none.
It's just like not, I don't want to feel the pain.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I'm on top of that, I've got all this guilt and worry about when is this shoe going to drop? I'm hiding this from everybody. My practice is still thriving. And no one knew. My patients didn't know, my staff, my colleagues, my friends, my wife, my family. No one knew what I was going through. I got really good at hiding it. And
Yeah.
there was a time where toward the end there, I remember thinking, you know what? I'm just either going to die from this or I'm going to get stopped. I've tried to quit on my own and it's impossible. And getting back to that stigma, why didn't I just ask for help? Why didn't I go to rehab? And I think my thinking at the time was like, what's that going to do to my dental license? What will
Right.
happen to so you've got this fear of I can get help, but what are all the ramifications? How am I going to be judged by my peers, my patients? It's
Or
funny
your
to think about.
family.
Yeah, your family.
Yeah.
What? And so it kept going for a very long time. And I stayed stuck in that state until the DEA came and visited my office one day, uh, basically stormed in my office mid-procedure during a procedure on a patient and basically told me, hey, I know what you're doing. Um, 10 DEA agents surrounding my office, dogs, pounded my car, grabbed my phone, interviewed my staff, stopped me from practicing, and basically told me, you're in deep trouble. We know what you've been doing. And
Okay.
that was the day that it all stopped for me.
Yeah.
So,
The run-in, the thing that was going to come and stop it.
yeah,
I know that feeling when you're like, I want to stop. I just can't.
yeah, yeah.
I just,
It's bad. I mean, I had these moments of clarity, like, what am I doing? This is outrageous,
and you think in those moments, like, I might kill myself doing this, but it's really funny how the addiction mind will almost say, okay,
Yeah, right.
okay,
I
we'll
know.
go down with this. Great.
Right.
And it's like a weird thing we're able to kind of, I don't know, the addiction brain is so good at finding loopholes or reasons
Right.
or, all these I really liked what you said, how you differentiated yourself from the program
Yeah.
compared to how you didn't see how you were similar to the program. Cause
Yeah.
I think that's so true.
Yeah.
We're looking for, I think a label hurts. You know what I mean? I really didn't want to be labeled an alcoholic. I have alcoholics in my family who did terrible things. So my opinion of an alcoholic was like an uncle who's mean to a grandma that he lives with. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I'm like, I
Right.
don't want to be that.
Right.
I don't want to be that,
Right.
And so you end up like figuring out that although it's not showing up in your life the way it showed up in their lives, that you're still dealing with the addiction and the mental kind of like strain. And I have to say this, you said you spent 2 years dry drunk,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people who don't understand addiction would see that as a win. Like, that is a miserable existence.
That's
Being
right.
an alcoholic with no outside source to fill that void,
That's
which
right.
you clearly said so well, fill the void
Right.
that alcohol left.
Yeah.
Because when you get that feeling, you just get like
Yeah.
when it hits that note,
Right.
and you're just like, nothing matters anymore.
Right.
Like, nothing matters. Like, I can just stay here in this moment forever. And then you isolate, you get small, you try to keep it exactly where it's at and everything like that. So the stress that you must have been going through in that, and then transitioning into, I see it. I would do the same thing. You got to a point where, like, all right, my doctor's cut me off after getting me hooked. I'd be mad at the doctor, to tell you the truth, because I'd be like, that'd be my first reaction. This is your fault. And then,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like,
know.
I would just, I'm sure, throw him under the bus. And then I'd be like, well, I have a pad that I write on for other people to get them medicine. It's right in front of me.
Right.
Why? You know what I mean? Like, you would do the same thing with the addiction mind telling you what to do. It's
right.
And it's not an easy thing to do, I'm sure. You know what I mean? But it's like, you can't stop yourself from the addiction. And it's either you're going to go to downtown at wherever you live. Like, it would be me downtown Atlanta trying to put my life on the line for some pills.
100%.
Or I'm going to write myself a prescription with the intent of, this is the last time. You know what I mean? So your addiction brain is like working in there. Could you relate to that at all?
Man, you said that so well, because that's exactly how I was. It's exactly how I was feeling. I remember, it was, at the time in 2011, there wasn't a prescription monitoring program they have now, where they are really tight on doctors who write prescriptions.
Right.
You can only write 7 days worth and this and that. We had, it was too easy. It was like, I could write a prescription for 60 Vicodin with 3 refills, no questions asked, boom, and it was done. And that carried on for, like I said, 4 years before it was even detected. Had I wished we had some kind of monitoring system back then, I wouldn't have had to go through all that we had to go through. But the dry drunk, it comes down to me not working the program. I wasn't doing the steps. I wasn't talking to people. I wasn't talking to my sponsor. I wasn't doing going to meetings and sharing. I was just sitting there just to go to meetings to take the heat off my back from my wife, say, and so that's the dry drunk. You're not using your substances to numb yourself anymore, but you still have the crazy mind and stresses and all the anxiety and pressures that you're dealing with without the ability to escape it. And so as soon as I had the chance to, take this medicine, and I've been prescribing that for years and never had an exposure to it before, so I didn't know what to expect. But it was that same feeling. It was that same feeling, like all is well. Like you said, I want to stay right here. And then you spend the rest of the time just chasing that feeling,
Yeah.
So,
and then you get to the point where you can't find the feeling, but you'll get sick if you don't put the stuff in you.
Exactly.
And that's a scary point.
Yeah.
Now, you said that, that's funny. I was telling you, my dad was in the DEA. I didn't realize it was the DEA that walked in on me.
Yeah.
So they walk in and basically life changes right there on the spot, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can no longer practice.
Right.
And basically you've got a case coming. You're not sure what that looks like.
That's right.
How did that period of time like develop? Like, did you go, I don't know what I would do. Would I go home and tell my wife right away, like what's
Yeah.
happening,
Uh,
or would I try to clean it up and hide it? How did you
okay.
respond?
So yeah, I'll expand on this part because it's actually pretty crazy part of my Shit Creek story. So I remember it was a Friday and it was a beautiful Friday. It was like June 18th, 2018. I just numbed a patient up and I had an office set up where I could, like all dentists, we have a way to come in from the back and leave from the back.
Yeah.
You don't have to walk through the waiting room. I had this office and I went outside to get a breath of fresh air. And I remember standing there and just taking in the beauty of the day. And this guy comes up to me, just walks up, normal looking clothes. His hair was kind of spiked up a little bit. And he was like, Dr. Hartman, can I talk to you for a minute? And I said, I thought it was another one of these sales reps that come in, they try to sell stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
look, not right now. I'm busy. I'm in the middle of a patient. He goes, oh, he flashes his badge. It says DEA on it. He's like, oh, we're going to talk right now. And he basically walks me into my office and he starts going, I know everything you've been doing. We've been following you for a year and a half now. He's like, you're in deep trouble. And initially I was like, what are you talking about? I was still in
Hmm.
denial. I was still sick. I was still in the throes of addiction. So I was just trying to deny it and deny it. And the more lies I told, the more I realized, man, I'm in deep here. This is not good.
Right.
And within minutes, the DEA agents surrounded my office and all that I told you. But they said, listen, you're under investigation, but you're not arrested. You're free to go. And I thought to myself, go where? I don't have a car. They took that. I don't have a cell phone. I can't call anybody. So I remember I took this walk of shame. I end up walking out of my office. Of course, I remember just looking down at the ground at my shadow, just in this kind of tunnel vision, like my life is collapsing around me. The day is here. Oh my God, what am I going to tell my wife? And I walk across the street to the 7-Eleven. And I knew the lady there because I used to go there all the time. I said, Sue, can I borrow your phone? And she goes, sure. And so I pick up the phone and I called my wife and I told her everything. And she was in the middle of a perfectly beautiful summer day, getting the kids ready for swim team, cooking grilled cheeses, everybody's
Yeah.
happy. And I rip
Hmm.
her life upside down within 5 minutes. I said, listen, I've been addicted to opiates for a very long time. I've been writing prescriptions illicitly. I just got stopped by the DEA. They took my car. I'm in trouble. Can you come pick me up?
Yeah.
And she came. And when she picked me up, I still remember her face. It was just this look of like complete shock and just disappointment and just fear. And, and that's part of the guilt and the shame that I still carry and I have to work on today is, man, the amount of pain that I caused my family and my wife and my children. And, so she picks me up. She takes me, I had to go do a drug screen at this lab where I gave some urine and they basically looked at everything that of course I had, I didn't have alcohol, but I had opiates in my bloodstream, marijuana in my bloodstream, and I was on Adderall too. So amphetamines. And
Hmm.
so they, basically tell me I'm not arrested. You're free to go. I'm under investigation. So I spent that was the last time I took an opiate. I spent 2 hours at my mom and dad's house telling them the same story. And I started going through the withdrawals bad. I mean, it was the most,
I was going to ask, because in that
uh,
moment, not only did the, career get
and
halted,
yep,
but now the drugs are
that's
halted.
right.
And that's a huge stress to, like, if when alcohol stops, that is the biggest stress,
That's
actually.
right.
You know what I mean?
That's
Like,
right.
there's other stuff and things are falling apart, but like when you lose the access to the thing that's making you comfortable, it really affects your mental health,
Right.
or it does with me for sure.
No, completely.
So,
Completely. Yeah, I was no longer able to numb. Now I'm feeling my emotions for the first time, and these are heavy emotions. I'm
yeah.
scared to death. I don't know what to think. I mean, I start going through it, and I spent the weekend at my parents' house. Didn't tell our children at the time, they were 11 and 13. Dad has a stomach bug. He's staying at grandma's house for the weekend.
Yeah.
End up going through 2 days of severe withdrawals and having my parents having to look at me like, in this state of like, shriveled up on the couch, just shivering, diarrhea, throwing up, like they must have just been like, they're at the point they're 75 years old. They don't. I didn't need to
Yeah.
put them through this, so
Yeah.
it's my
I know the
parents,
feeling.
yeah, my kids,
Yeah.
my wife. We end up eventually going back. I go back and I start telling the children. This time they're 11 and 13, so we told them a little bit about addiction. Dad's sick. He's going away. He's going to go get better. And I ended up going to a 90-day rehab. But this time,
Okay.
residential rehab in Williamsburg, Virginia. Um, and I get back and I'm working the program now. I'm like, okay, this
Mm.
is it. I don't need any more research. I am an addict, an alcoholic. Look what I've done. This is crazy. And
Yeah.
I've got a sponsor. I'm working the steps. And I get back. However, there's this emptiness where I can't practice. They've suspended my license, but I'm under investigation, so we don't know what's going to happen. And it was terrifying. It was
Yeah.
absolutely, it was scary because the government was telling us, oh, well, you're in deep trouble. They took every single prescription that I wrote for 4 years and they added up into a drug weight. So, 4 years of prescription writing, all 20 pills at a time.
Hmm.
They give you this thing called marijuana equivalence. So they said this is equivalent to you selling and distributing 37 tons of marijuana. 37 tons. And they
Whoa.
said you are facing anywhere between 10 and 11 years in prison. We're going to be giving you a charge of one felony count of conspiracy because I used multiple people to
Okay.
distribute controlled substances. Because the act of giving a prescription to somebody, getting the pills back to me, even though I didn't sell them at all, I used them for my own benefit, was distribution. So I'm getting charged like a heroin dealer, running a trap house would, and basically, severe, heavy charges.
Yeah.
And at this point, it was kind of under wraps. My patients kind of knew that I was taking a medical leave of absence. My staff knew what happened to me, obviously, and my close knit group of friends, but no one really else really knew what was going on until my wife's birthday on February 19th. The story hits the news, and it hit the news hard. It was my picture all over the news, pictures of my office, doctor running the biggest opiate ring in the East Coast, dirty doctor this, morning, noon, night, channels 3, 10, 13, all the local radio stations. I'm on the newspaper. I mean, this was like, if you've ever seen Goodfellas, I'm looking out the window waiting for the helicopter to fly over top. I mean, it was horrendous. It was a
Yeah.
real public flogging, and my wife's birthday. Um,
I'm, I'm sorry that that
yeah, you
happened the
can
way it did,
imagine.
but
Yeah, and then the poor children. What are they going to do?
yeah.
They don't go to school. They're worried about what their friends are going to say, and so we get through that, and then it comes to the point of my plea agreement, and I go through the whole system, and the judge basically wanted to hear none of it. My attorney at the time was like, "You're probably going to get a year because you've never been in trouble before. I've never even been in a courtroom before. I've never had any problems with the law." He was like, "This is your first offense. It's a story of addiction. You never sold it. Get ready to do a year." So we were like, a year? Oh my gosh, how am I going to do a year? And I
Hmm.
get to the courtroom and he hands me 100-month sentence, 8.5 years, 8 years, 4 months. And I get handcuffed right in front of my whole family in the courtroom and get taken away. And I spent 3 years, 9 months in federal prison before I got back.
Wow.
Yeah.
3 years, 9 months.
And my license
Wow.
got revoked, not suspended. They pulled it and revoked it and said, you're no longer able to practice ever again. And
Ever. Okay.
yeah, so they said you could reapply for reinstatement, and that's kind of a side story. But I tried to get my license reinstated, went through a hearing, and they basically voted 4-2. Nope, sorry, you're done. Yeah, so
And
that's a shit creaker.
that's definitely a shit creek. And the
Yeah.
truth is, like, if it would have all gone down in like 2008 or something like that, it would have been a lot less heavy, because I think around 2018 is when they
That's right.
really started kicking up on opiates and all
Couldn't
this
have
kind
been
of
a
stuff.
worse
I mean,
time. 100%. It
so
really,
it just like kind of perfect storm.
mhm.
You're a doctor, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's like a very public thing to like
Yeah.
put it, but the fact that, and when we're going through it and we're like, chasing our addiction, I mean, we love our families. We
Yeah.
love our families.
Right.
It's not as if we turn off the love for our families.
No.
It's just we get caught up in a personal pursuit that we think is making us better. And then so your brain's tricking you and all this kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But, we love our families. And when we hurt our families, we feel terrible. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't want to, you just feel so sad about it. But what I'm keying in on is that you really kind of stepped up to the plate. You went to rehab, a 90-day inpatient, which is
Mhm.
not an easy thing to do.
No.
At the point you separated from your medicine, at the same point you separated from your practice, your family's just found out what's going on. You had a lot going on at the
Yeah,
same
man.
time, and you still went to rehab. So I commend you for that, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm sorry that you feel the shame. We kind of talked about this earlier, but like, always remember that like you are not the culmination of your mistakes.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You are Gary. You
Right.
are Gary, full, true, all this kind of stuff. You are not allowed to be put into this small box of only your mistakes. And I think that's what we do to ourselves a lot of the times. And then we take on this shame isn't just like, I wish I hadn't done it. It's an identity.
Right.
It's like, I am a flawed, broken, I would call myself dirtbag, all kinds of stuff about what I've done to like my family and all that kind of stuff. So it's not a fun place to be. I think a lot of times people think addicts are just like frivolous and they don't care about anything or anything like that. When a lot of times, like you said, we're suffering silently.
That's right.
We find something that helps fill that void, and then it kind of gets out of control on us and our priorities get screwed up and we end up in places we never dreamed we would end up, nor would want, but somehow we do. And you got to start again, and you started doing it again. You got back to rehab. So what happened? You said coming out of rehab, it was hard to figure out what to do because you're not practicing. It's like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Then you end up with the jail sentence, and that's a whole nother world. You could speak to it more, but do you remember, like, did you have some time and then you had to turn yourself in on a certain date, or they took you right there, right then into custody?
Right then.
Yeah, they probably did, right?
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I never got arrested in this whole thing. People's like, well, did you get arrested? No, I was investigated. Then I was let go. I'm under investigation. So I go to rehab. I get back. I'm finding that, okay, you have to do what's called a pre-indictment plea. You're going to get indicted, but you can do a plea agreement and go to a plea hearing and say, basically, I'm guilty, with a list of guidelines that the government has, written out for you. Basically, you're going to get up to 20 years and you're going to be on supervised release and yada, yada. So I go to this plea agreement, and the attorney at this point, beyond the what he told me that I may get a year. This is before that, the plea agreement. He says, this is just a formality. You basically go in, you walk in, you just say, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You sign a couple papers, and then you're out on bond until your sentencing, which is usually like 90 days, 3 months later.
Right.
So, okay. He didn't tell me that there was any chance that I was going to get whisked away right there. He basically said, you go in, you do this, you get home, you get your orders and your affairs in order. And then, you go to your sentencing and we'll find out what you're sentenced to. So I go to this plea hearing that day, and I remember I leave the house, tell my 11 and 13-year-old, bye guys, I'll see you later. I'm going to the courthouse for a little bit. I'll see you at dinner time.
Yeah.
Didn't even kiss my dog, walk out, go to the plea hearing. I get in there and go through the motions, and the judge basically was like, you know what? I'm not going to treat you any differently than anybody else. He's like, you're remanded into custody right now, and until sentencing. So they took me right from the courthouse, cuffed me. The marshal came in, handcuffed me, took me away, put me in a wagon, took me over to county jail for 6 months, where I stayed until my sentencing, and then I went to federal prison from there. So
Gotcha.
it was a shocker. It was like I wasn't even expecting that. I didn't even say goodbye to anybody. I didn't even think that that would happen at all, and I was taken
Yeah.
right away to jail, which, like you said, is a whole different experience and story altogether. It was eye
Yeah.
opening. 47 years old. I'm a doctor. I go into this place where you have all kinds of criminals and personalities and people, and it's a
Yeah.
very different society in a way. They have rules and regulations and different little, things you're
Yeah.
supposed to do and not do. And you kind of learn quickly how to become one of these people and fit in, or you quickly find out that you don't fit in. And
Yeah. It's about
that's,
survival. You know what I
oh
mean? It's
man,
like you got to blend in with the pack. You got to do what they do.
that's
You know
right.
what I mean? You got to prove yourself in a lot of
Yeah,
situations. I've never been in federal prison, but that's only from what I know. You know what I
it's
mean? Like you
crazy.
having a lived experience
Yeah, right.
is amazing, to tell you the truth. I mean, that
Well, it's talking about the prison situation, it's weird. I think, as long as you give respect, respect is given to you, which I had no problem with. Okay, I'll mind my own business. I'm just going to do this thing on my own and get through it one day at a time. And that's for the most part what I did. But there is a little bit of an advantage of being a doctor, in the sense it's almost like Lord of the Flies. Everybody has a role in this little society. You got the
yeah.
shoe cleaner, you got the lawyer, the plumber, the electrician. I was the doctor. And so, okay, I had some value. And so, immediately gave you a little respect, in the sense that, okay, when the dental clinic in the prison was awful. These guys would go get their teeth pulled when they just needed a filling, and then yank their tooth out and get out of here, no follow up. So these guys would come
Yeah.
back to the unit and be like, "Hey doc, is this healing right? Or is this
Yeah.
infected?" And I was doing a little mini triage to these guys that I think
Wow.
helped give me a little bit of respect and value in this world. So it wasn't too terrible. It was horrible in the sense that I was away from my family. I was this periodontist wearing scrubs, performing these high stakes procedures. And now I'm an inmate with a yellow jumpsuit with a number, and a head floor guy at the chow hall. That sort
Yeah.
of dichotomy sat hard with me, and it really, you talk about a whole new rock bottom, man. I really was at the point where I was like, God, either take me out or fix me, help me get through this. I was either going to give up, or I was really going to dig in and work recovery like it was my life depended on it. And that's what I've done. I try to change who I am from the inside out from that point forward.
That's awesome.
But yeah,
That's awesome. That's stepping up to the plate. You know what I mean? When it looks like everything's fallen to the ground and you decide, well, I'm not going to quit. I'm
yeah,
going to grow.
right.
I'm going to try. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I'm going to pursue the right path, even if it hurts. And then
yeah.
you end up kind of, I found out, like someone said something to me recently, that you change when the pain that you're experiencing, the situation you're in, is more than the fear of the unknown. So you could say that, like with sobriety, you know what I mean? The only time I was ready to get sober was when the pain of my situation got so more intense and surmounted the fear of coming out and saying I'm an alcoholic or
Yeah,
I've got a drinking problem and all this
exactly.
kind of stuff. You see a lot of action happen in that moment where
Yep,
the pain becomes too much, and so you run to what you need to run to. And
that's right.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about after. I mean, what was it like to get home after?
Um, it was hard. Initially, I left. My kids were 11 and 13. I get back,
Yeah.
they're 15 and 17. I
Yeah.
missed a lot of sporting events, graduations, proms, birthdays, Father's Days, family trips. The pain of going through that. Like you said, pain is a great motivator. I had this, and the pain of knowing how much pain I caused other people too, that my wife had to carry this household on all by herself. And prison's like this little bubble where you're kind of secluded from it. I didn't have the neighbors looking at you at the grocery store like she did, you know, and all the things that he
Right.
had to go through and pay the bills and raise these children on their own. But I get back and my identity crisis was probably the hardest thing, you know,
Yeah.
going from being this doctor that, you know, I was making decisions. I was, you know, kind of the expert in the room. I was the breadwinner in the family to now someone with uncertainty, someone trying to figure things out, someone that feels less relevant, you know, and that
That's
was incredibly
that's
hard.
tough.
Yeah. And to this day, you know, it's still a struggle to some degree, but I had to really, you know, expand my identity, like my idea of what my identity was. You know, I'm like you had said, I'm more than my problems or my mistakes or,
Yeah.
you know, the things that I did, my shit creek. I am, you know, a father, I'm a husband, I'm a friend, I'm, you
Yeah.
know, a person in recovery, I'm a person rebuilding rather than just tying my identity to my career, which I did for so long, you know?
I I still have issues with that.
Yeah.
So before I got shot, I was a police officer.
Right.
After I got shot, I'm the police officer who got shot.
Right.
But when I was no longer with the department and time went on, who am I now?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I wasn't hanging out with any of the same people or anything like that. And you just get in this headspace that you need to be somebody.
Right.
I have to have a label on me. What am I now?
Right.
Like, how am I valuable?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
it's like, why am I important? Why would you keep me around? You know, like all these kinds of ideas. And we get so attached to those ideas that we forget that we're just a human being, that we're like a soul basically on earth. You
That's
know,
right.
you like, because I was raised by a teacher and a DEA agent.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's who they were.
Yeah.
And my mom is still a teacher. You know what I mean? So when I was looking at my future, like, what am I going to be? It really was, what identity am I going to take on? You know, like what will make me different than others? What will make me matter? What is my identity?
That's right.
When really mattering or being important to others isn't part of your identity.
That's right.
It may be something that's happening in your life, but it's not your identity, you know?
And that's
And we
really,
get that twisted up.
yeah, get that twisted up. It's really hard to discern the two, you know, it's, I struggled with that too for a very long time, you know, for me.
Because then there's different parts of it I found. There's like one, you know, where you're like, I can't be not that person. And then you you start like, what am I trying to say? You I think you start to like basically say like, I'm not a police officer anymore. Now I'm a problem. At least I did. You know what I mean? It's like, if
Right.
I'm not valuable to the world, then I'm not valuable in general.
Right.
And I got those two things very twisted.
Completely.
I got a little mixed up there, but
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I had that feeling
yeah,
too. It was like, you know, I was relevant before and now I'm irrelevant. You know, I didn't have this like, I didn't have this base of like, who am I? I'm Dr. Hartman. I'm the periodontist. So what am I now? Well, I'm Gary. I'm a father and a son and a brother and all those things I mentioned to you before. But it took a long time and a lot of therapy and a lot of introspection to get to the point where, you know, I'm okay with that now. I think I realize what's important to me, you know, until
yeah,
you have everything stripped away from you, you realize
mm,
you really don't realize how much you took for granted. Like, you know,
yeah,
just the simple things like when I was in prison by myself, alone, isolated in a little room, staring at shadows moving across the floor, I thought I would do anything to take a walk with my wife and dog just around the neighborhood. And I never thought
yeah,
twice about that before. Like big whoop. In fact, I probably was annoyed by doing that at sometimes. But those little things, you know, like
yeah,
those are the things. They're driving my kid to soccer practice. And I was such a pain. I would do anything to do that when I was away and away from it all. And so you realize, man, I had a lot of things that were important to me that I completely was just ripping through life and not aware of what I was taking for granted. And
yeah.
those are the things that I can value now and that I can say is my identity and important to me, you know?
And there's like stages to that. I think this is what I was trying to say before. Like at first you're just trying to get away from the identity or something like that. But then you like start to grow and you start to learn that you don't have to have an identity. And then there's almost another wave of shame. Like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Why did I think that? You know what I mean?
Right.
So you keep breaking down the castle bit by bit. Like, why was this so important? And so it's not as simple as like, oh, you're right, I shouldn't do that. Boom.
Yeah.
It's like learning why. Why did I do that? Why did that matter? Who else did I see doing that? That was important to me. Was I modeling it after someone?
Yeah.
Did I have a sense of pride or ego of who I was? You know what I mean? And then you have to come to terms with that too. Like, was I walking around like I was hot shit at one point, and then now I'm sad because I'm not hot shit. You know what I mean? Like that's not real. That's ego. So you have to like, it's this whole like working out of what's going on. So I think for anyone listening, like understand that is a long process. It's a hard process. It comes with growth and you kind of tease it apart. But as you do, you gain more understanding. And at the end, you actually see where the dots connect and how you got to where you were, you know, and it's almost relieving. It's one of those waves where you're like, oh, I don't have to be a police officer.
Right. That's well said.
You know, like
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just get to be you. And you get to like, and for a long time in addiction, when you give up the substance, you believe that life is going to absolutely be terrible for the rest of your life. Like I thought without alcohol, life is going to be so boring, but I'll do it anyway so I don't die from it.
Right.
But then one day, you know, I'll just say fairly recently, I went out to dinner with my wife. I didn't have my face to the door, so I wasn't like PTSD'd out. You know what I mean? I wasn't even thinking if there was a bar within view or not. And that's usually one of my key things. If there's a bar, I'll put my back to the bar, even if that means I have to put my back to the door, which is totally polar opposite from the way I used to do it. But the other day I found myself having a great time. Alcohol didn't come up until the fact I thought I was like, oh, well, I'm having a great time and alcohol had nothing to do with this. Like I felt free suddenly, you know what I mean? And that also doesn't come right away, but you can have fun.
That's growth.
You can get back into it, reacclimate and like find your fun out there. It's possible.
I agree with that statement. I agree. Yeah. So,
and you can enjoy it more.
You can, you know, and I struggled when I first got back a little bit with how I was going to parent these kids, you know. They're now driving around, doing their own thing. You know, I wasn't a parent. How do I fit in and be the parenting role instead of the friend? That was really difficult, you know? So
maybe scary.
Yeah, it was. It was like kind of getting to know them again. And it was like a time warp, you know. So I went through prison during COVID. And during that time, there was absolutely no visitation. So I was, you know, struck with not being able to see my wife and children for a year and a half. They didn't, you know, have any visitation. There was very limited phone calls. So, you know, I'm watching them grow up in increments of years, you know. Here I see him next year and he's 6 inches taller and his voice is deep. And it's like, man, I missed a lot, you know?
Yeah.
So, it's definitely a shit creek. Definitely a shit creek.
Definitely a shit creek, but definitely one to learn from.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who might be sitting in the creek right now, who's actually looking up at the mountain and saying, I don't have what it takes. I don't think I'm even going to try. Because I felt that way for a long time where I was like, I want to do it, but I don't think I can. You know what I mean? And because I don't think I can, I don't really want to do it because I don't want to fail.
Yeah.
So,
man, I was the same way. I would first tell that person who's in their shit creek, and this is because I lived it. I would say, you're not alone as you think you are. You know, I think it's easy to compare yourself with other people when you're in your shit creek, when you're in a deep struggle, and look at others that seemingly have their life put together perfectly. And I think I was a perfect example of that, was that the people that oftentimes look like they're doing well and have their crap together are often the ones that are struggling the most, you know? And so I think that's kind of the dangerous thing about struggle, is it convinces you that no one could possibly understand what you're carrying. It's like you believe that that's it. You're the only one. And
Yeah.
I, for the longest time, felt like I had to figure things all out on my own. Like that was it.
Yep.
I was the person that would recluse away and isolate and just mull over in my head my problem, trying to solve it, and wouldn't let anybody in. And someone once told me, "Hey, a problem shared is a problem cut in half." And I really believe that now. You go and tell somebody what's going on with you, it seems to lessen the magnitude of what you're going through. So the first thing
I
I would
agree.
say would be try to find somebody that you trust, and let it out, talk about what's going on with you. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be a therapist or a sponsor or 12-step person, just somebody, a friend that you trust, and let them know how you're feeling, because that power of sharing can really change things, and make you able to conquer something that looks like a mountain,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely.
Um, Second thing I would say is that no matter the struggle, it's probably not going to get fixed overnight, and that's one of the
Hmm.
things that I struggled with right away when I had my downfall and I got back, as particularly as I wanted everything fixed right away. I wanted my reputation restored. I wanted my career back. I wanted, relationships restored. And, I wanted my old life back, and I wanted it
Yep.
now, and I realized now, having had some time away and some time working on this, is that doesn't work like that. It happens with, like one little conversation, one open door, one opportunity, one little step at a time.
Yep.
And that was something that, my sponsor used to hammer into me. He's like, just easy does it, one day at a time. This is something that
Yeah.
takes a little time to get through, and eventually you'll get through it. And then, like you had mentioned
Yeah.
before, your current circumstances, whatever they are, they don't have to define who you are. It's not
Hmm.
it's not your identity. For me, that was hard. For a long time, that's all I could see was my mistakes, all that I've lost, what I don't have anymore. All of my errors, and I think I just know now that that's such a small part of my story. It's not the whole
Hmm.
story, that, I can still build a meaningful life outside of
Yeah.
what was my career, and, yeah,
I think sometimes we feel like someone else has to agree
yeah,
that we have a wonderful life.
right.
We don't.
We don't.
We don't need anybody else saying you're doing it right.
That's right.
Click. You know it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like you built your life again from the ground up,
right.
and you have such a great kind of like vision of this was what was. I wanted everything back, but it turns out it doesn't all go back the way it
That's
does.
right.
I found that out kind of like this is a weird thing to say, but had I not gotten shot, I wouldn't have done the hard work to then get to the childhood trauma, which then really set me free.
That's right.
And then because I wanted my life to go back to what it was.
Yeah,
I wanted my identity. I wanted all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to go back, and I felt that it was unfair that it was taken. You know what I mean?
right.
And then, but as hard as I tried, it wouldn't go back to what it was. And now I'm happy that it didn't. Like without being shot, I don't think I'd be who I am. Or without being shot, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be who I am today. Like I've seriously considered going to the jail and thanking the guy, even if he's still in there. I don't even. Yeah.
Thank
One
you,
day I'm
sir.
going to get the bullet out of evidence. I know
Right,
that
right, right.
they got the bullet out of my neck and they put it right into evidence.
I
And
bet they
so
did.
I want to get it back. And what are we at? 11 years. I think his sentence is 15. So
Gosh, you should have got more
we'll
than that.
see. He shot two of us. He didn't kill anyone. So
No,
there we
that's
go.
why. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think, I guess finally I'd say, it's looking at the shit creek. I think it's probably important not to focus too much on trying to cross that creek, or looking at the end of the creek and saying, oh, that, like you were saying, it's a mountain. How am I going to get there? I think
Hmm.
it's those small steps that you repeat over and over again that somehow carry you through and get you to the other side. It's just
Yeah.
looking for that next paddle, not
Yeah.
not trying to get through it as fast as you could or focusing on the end. Like with recovery, I remember thinking, gosh, how am I ever not going to drink again my entire life? And my sponsor would be like, you don't have to worry about that. Just focus on today, just not drinking today, you know? And when
Yep.
I was in prison, I remember thinking, how am I going to get through 8 years? And I think what got me through was just focusing on today. Like, okay, today I'm going to get through today and I'm going to do things that improve my mind and my body today. And I'm going to go to bed and I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do it again tomorrow. And
Yeah.
that kind of like chipping at it in small pieces seemed to help me get through the shit
Yeah.
creek, you know? So
I agree. Even the idea of like going down rabbit holes, like I would go down rabbit holes and they'd be very destructive. Like, how did I get here? Why did I do
yeah,
this?
oh, yeah,
All that kind of stuff, which isn't helpful.
no,
There's no benefit from it, which I've realized over years of trying to rewrite the past. It never works.
no,
And then you're just basically putting yourself through turmoil.
that's right.
And so I'm like, I've been asking myself, why am I doing this?
Mhm.
And then now I notice when I start doing it, I go, God, I'm doing it again. And then like, because I'm
Yeah.
not, I've realized I'm not capable of stopping myself. So now I'm asking for help.
That's it.
It's really quite funny.
That's good.
But
Yeah.
yeah. The other last thing I want to say, and you will know what I'm talking about, is that your brain is a very dangerous place to explore alone.
That's right.
Because
Very dangerous
you
neighborhood.
can get you can get into some crazy spots in your mind. And I had to remind myself that the storm that I'm experiencing in my mind actually isn't what the real world is experiencing.
That's a good way to put it.
Because I would be like so spastic about like the pain I'm in or the panic that I'm having that I assume that you felt the same way
That's
too.
right.
Because you know what I mean? And they're like, I don't know what's going on with you, dude.
What's going on with you? Yeah, right. I know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
I'd
it's
be like,
important.
but you do.
Yeah. Look at your thoughts. Look at what you're thinking. And it's funny. I did finally learn that through a lot of therapy is that you can control your thoughts. You know, you're not at the mercy of whatever crosses your brain. You know, switch that channel, you know, think of something positive, put something positive in place and helps me from not getting spun out, just like you said. So,
yeah.
But
you got to be able to let yourself heal and grow.
That's right.
And that doesn't go as well if you're creating panic inside yourself. If you're creating more shame, you know, more, how did I get here? It should be, what am I doing today to move forward?
That's right.
And, you know, we're not perfect. We all have our own roads and our own programs and our own plans. But to anyone listening, keep going down the road. There is sunshine on the other side. Like, it is pretty amazing when you have a happy day without the substance that you thought was absolutely necessary for you to ever feel happiness again.
100%.
And you can get back up when you fall down. And I mean, Gary's a great example of that. And the courage to come out here and share that story so other people will grow through it. Thank you, Gary.
Hey, listen, it's my pleasure. I'm hoping someone heard something that they can use in their own lives, and that's why I do it. And I'm going to continue to do so. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Shit Creek Survivors. If Gary's story reminded you of one thing, it's that your worst chapter does not have to be your final chapter. No matter how far you've drifted or how impossible things might seem today, there is hope, there is help, and there is a way forward. If this episode encouraged you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Every share helps us reach another person who feels stuck in their own shit creek. And remember, we believe one thing. Everyone has a shit creek story. The good news is no one has to stay there. We'll see you next week.